Alright, today you're going to be taking notes on Article 1 of the Constitution as we're starting our 3 branches of government unit. So the first thing you need to write on your document is this is Article 1, which talks about the legislative branch, and of course the legislative branch is a part of our Congress. Or, said differently, our Congress is really a part of the legislative branch. So we're going to talk about some of the people who are involved in this branch of government. First, we're going to talk about the lower house. If you remember from last unit, this is the Virginia plan. This is the one that favors larger states. The qualifications to be a member of the United States House of Representatives: you need to be at least 25 years of age, have lived in the United States for at least 7 years, and you must live in the state that you represent. So even if you are someone who has not lived in the United States for 7 years, that really eliminates you from being a possible candidate. So just because you're 25 doesn't automatically mean you can run for the House. Notice nowhere on the qualifications does it say that you must be a United States citizen born and raised. You could just be a citizen who comes to this country and becomes a naturalized citizen, meaning you weren't born here. The term for House of Representatives members are 2 years, so every other year we actually elect all 435 members of the United States House of Representatives. And that number right there is how many total House of Representatives members there are. Now, the more representatives your state has is based upon population. So the bigger states like California have a lot more House of Representatives members than smaller population states like Montana or Wyoming. The population is decided every 10 years with something called a census, which we'll be talking about later in this unit. Our state of Michigan, if you're curious, we currently have 14 members of the United States House of Representatives that are in Washington, D.C. from our state. We used to have 15, but because our population didn't grow as much as other states, in the 2010 census, we actually lost a member of the House of Representatives. So we have 14 members of the House of Representatives that are from Michigan. More information on the House of Representatives. This is our member of the House who represents Michigan's 4th Congressional District, which is what Stanton, Sheridan, Montcalm County is a part of. Our state representative from Michigan, who's in the House of Representatives, his name is John Moolenaar. Picture of him right here. The jobs of the House members: they need to make all national laws, they declare war and provide for an armed forces, they set up our court systems, they make impeachments. In other words, they start the accusation process. So the word impeachment means that you are going to try to formally remove a public official from office. So it could be a president, it could be a fellow congressman, it could be a member of the judicial branch. But if you're impeaching, you're formally trying to basically fire that person. And so the House of Representatives' responsibility with that is they do the accusing. The House also starts all money bills. So a bill is a proposed law. Any proposed law that has to do with money must originate in the House of Representatives. And then, as you can see with the asterisk here, taxes as well. So taxes are duties that the House shares with the United States Senate. Speaking of the United States Senate, this is the other part of Congress. So House of Representatives, as I mentioned earlier, was part of the Virginia plan. And you're going to want to write down for Senate. The Senate basically is the New Jersey plan. That is, it's based on equality. Every single state, no matter how many people or no matter how few of people that you have, each state has 2 senators. Now, the qualifications to be a member of the United States Senate: you must be at least 30 years of age. You must have lived in the United States for a minimum of 9 years. Again, notice there's no requirement that you must be born in the United States. And you need to live in the state that you represent. So if you are from Michigan, you can't represent Ohio or Indiana or Wisconsin. You can only represent Michigan. The term that you serve is a 6-year term. Now, every 2 years, 1/3 of the members of the Senate come up for election. For instance, in the year 2018, we'll elect 1/3 of the Senate. In the year 2020, we'll elect another third of the Senate. And in the year 2022, we'll elect another third of the Senate. So not all senators, even though they all serve 6-year terms, they're not all up for re-election at the same time. Those years are staggered. They're a little bit different. As I mentioned, every single state in the United States, no matter how big, small your population may be, they all have at least two, or sorry, not at least, they all have exactly 2 members of the Senate, which makes for 100 total members of our Senate. Here are some pictures of our 2 senators that are currently representing Michigan. This guy up top here is Gary Peters, and the lady down here is Debbie Stabenow. Notice the D next to their name. That designates that they are both Democrats. If you ever see a D represented on television when you're watching politics, that D doesn't stand for their grade in their social studies class. Ha ha ha. That D instead stands for Democrat, so it tells you they're part of the Democratic Party. R, of course, would stand for the Republican Party. The jobs of the United States Senate are to make all national laws, declare war and provide the armed forces, set up our system of courts. And those 3 are all things that they share with the House of Representatives, along with taxing. Unique jobs of the Senate: they try the impeachment. So if the House accuses someone, if they start to go through the process of formally trying to remove someone from office, when they have the trials for those people, those happen in the United States Senate. The Senate also must approve all money bills. So although money bills originate in the House of Representatives, they must be approved in the Senate before they become law. And the Senate approves all appointments and treaties with foreign countries. So the Senate has a good number of responsibilities as well. With each branch of government, we have what are called checks and balances. This is where we talked about our last unit, where we make sure that we have a separation of powers so that no one group or no one person can have too much power. So this is how the other branches, the judicial branch and the executive branch, check up and make sure the legislative branch members are doing their job. And also vice versa. Checks on the judicial branch. The Senate must approve all federal judges. So when a new judge is put in place, the Senate must approve that before it can be confirmed. The legislative branch also has impeachment power to both start the process and the trial for judicial branch members, and the Congress also has the power, the legislative branch has the power to alter the size of the Supreme Court. What you learn about later in this unit is that there are currently only 9 members of the United States Supreme Court, but if the legislative branch, if Congress wanted to alter that size, either adding or subtracting, they could absolutely do that. And the checks on the executive branch. Legislative branch has impeachment power as well. They may override presidential vetoes. Let me explain this one to you. So if a president doesn't like a proposed law, he or she could reject that law. It's called a veto. If Congress still thinks that the law is important and it's good and that we should use it, they can do what's called override a veto, which takes a much higher percentage of the Congress to approve and to override what the president's wishes are. Senate approves departmental appointments by the president. They must approve treaties and ambassadors. Only Congress has the power to declare war. A lot of students are surprised by this. They think, well, only the president has the power to declare war. Not true. Anybody in the legislative branch has the power to declare war as a whole, so only Congress can do that. Congress, of course, the power to tax, we already mentioned, and the president, you can see former President Barack Obama here, must from time to time deliver what's called a State of the Union address. This is where the president meets in front of a joint session of Congress, so all members of the House, all members of the Senate, along with members of the Supreme Court and other high-ranking U.S. officials, and the president must basically tell how things are going in the country. And so that is a major job of checks and balances for the legislative branch. Now on Google Classroom, now that we're finished with those notes, please go and take a look at, it will be posted right up here. Sorry, it's not just yet. But your legislative branch film notes. And once you grab those, you can take a look right here. And we'll go ahead and fill these out. So go ahead and get those up and we'll fill these out. Now, I used to have students just watch these movies, but I had kids over the years, Mr. Bazem, these movies are just terrible. They're awful. We got bored. So I basically quit showing them. However, the notes that I had that went with the movies are actually really valuable and helping you out for your test. So I'm going to go through the notes. I just won't make you sit through the boring movies. So here you go. Hopefully you enjoyed my wonderful voices there. What document is the supreme law of the land? That would be the United States Constitution. That means that the supreme law of the land, the Constitution, overranks all other laws. Number 2, the legislative branch does what with laws? They create them or they make them. Number 3, how many years must you be a U.S. citizen before you can be elected to the House? If you were paying attention during the PowerPoint, the answer is 7 years. Number 4, could I be a member of the House of Representatives? Yes, because I've lived in the United States for over 7 years. I would have to be a representative from Michigan since I live in Michigan, and I am definitely over the age of 25. Probably had a few of you fooled, huh? Wink, wink. Haha. Number 5, what is a census? A census is a population count done nationwide every 10 years, and we're going to be learning more about how I should say a census works as we go through the unit. 6, how many members are in the Senate? 100 total, 2 from each state. Number 7, a senator's term is for 6 years. Number 8, what city was our capital in when George Washington was sworn in as president? A city that I visited before, which is New York City. I've actually been to the spot on the East Coast trip where Washington was sworn in as president. It's kind of a neat thing. You can actually go right there. It's in the middle of the street. Number 9, the majority leader of the House of Representatives is referred to as the Speaker of the House. Number 10, who is the President of the Senate? The current President of the Senate, or always the President of the Senate, would be the Vice President of the United States. Number 11, if the President and Vice President both die, the Speaker of the House of Representatives would then become President. So actually in our Constitution, it is laid out that if multiple people were to pass on in the line of succession, we need to have a plan in place. Well, if the President dies, the Vice President takes over. The Vice President dies, the Speaker of the House takes over. Number 12, the Congress can fire a public official from office, including the President of the United States, by a process called impeachment. We've discussed this a little bit already. 13, the 3 presidents that have faced impeachment in our nation's history: Andrew Johnson, Richard Nixon, and Bill Clinton. Number 14, what do lobbyists attempt to do? Lobbyists attempt to get congressmen to be on their side, to agree with them, to spend money in certain ways, or sway their voting and their opinions. And lobbyists are a big part of what happens in our political system today. And you'll learn more about that as you get into high school. Father of the Constitution, a.k.a. Shorty, is James Madison. Of course, James Madison writes the majority of the Constitution. 16, laws start by being introduced in either the House or the Senate. And for 17, your last question, a quorum is 1 over the majority. 1 over half, which is a majority. So if we had 50 people, a quorum would be 26 because it's 1 more than half. If we had 101 people, a quorum would be 52 because half of 101 is 51 and a half. You'd round up to 52. So a quorum, you can just put for number 17, is simply a majority. If you have additional questions, you can come ask me and let me know. And I would recommend filling in some of this information on your Unit 4 I Know sheet so you can be very well prepared for your test. Hopefully you took good notes. You never know when you might be able to use them. Have a good one.